Hey, everybody. Happy Saturday night. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for joining me. If you got the early morning wake up call bell this morning, sorry about that. That was a slip of the thumb on the computer mouse when I set this live up the other day. Again, so sorry about that. Should have been PM, not AM. But we're coming to you an hour earlier because I know some other channels are going at 7. I didn't want to really overlap with them. I really am grateful for all of you tuning in. If you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button. We'd also love to have you as a subscriber. Since we were live last night, a lot of things have happened. Still no arrest in the disappearance, the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. But a lot of activity unfolded when we were here last night. I was here with Chris McDonough from the interview room. And as you'll recall, the SWAT team had rolled out along with the bomb squad. They went to a neighborhood in the town of Marana. They detained some people in a house. And it seems it was 3 people they detained. They executed a search warrant. They also did a traffic stop, and they took some fingerprints and likely DNA from a person in that vehicle. People were detained. They were not placed under arrest. So there's a big difference there. I've seen differing opinions about that on Twitter, but I'm here to tell you right now, there's a big difference between being detained and placed under arrest. So I have a great guest who I want to bring in tonight to join me. I've had her on Crime Fix on Law and Crime before. Her name is Dr. Laura Petler, and she is a criminologist, and she is here joining me. I'm so excited about this. Dr. Laura Petler, thank you so much. What are your thoughts? I mean, my goodness, it's been such a flurry of activity in this case over the last week and a half, but really over the last several days. We have another SWAT raid. Last night, it appears this was a federal operation with the assistance of the Pima County Sheriff. I mean, people were thinking, is this it? Is this an arrest? My God. But no, they said they were acting on a tip. I'm going to put the statement up from the Pima County Sheriff. Last night, a federal court-ordered search warrant was executed at a residence near East Orange Grove Road and North First Avenue in connection with the Guthrie case. The warrant was based on a lead we received. No arrests were made. A traffic stop was also conducted and a person was questioned, but no arrest resulted from that incident. There are no further details available at this time. So there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth, from the sheriff's office. Obviously, you know, they're collecting things like fingerprints, DNA. They took that Range Rover away from the person during the traffic stop. What do you think's going on here?
Well, good evening, Angenette. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to always, it's always an honor to work with you. And yes, what a whirlwind this has been for everybody. And I think I not only speak for you guys in the media, but for all of us as experts, but also for the public, you know, and for the sheriff's office and the FBI and the other agencies that may be involved here, which I would expect, you know, there's also other agencies involved. So I missed all that last night. I crashed before all that went on. So I woke up to a bunch of text messages, you know, about this going on last night. And yeah, and I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, you know, is this going to be it?" Because it's interesting that they bring SWAT out. You know, when they bring SWAT out, that is consistent with so many different things. Like, are they expecting a dangerous situation? Are they expecting a armed? You know, so there's lots of things that they're considering if they're going to bring out SWAT, as opposed to you just not bringing out a tactical team and just going to serve a warrant. People go and serve warrants all the day, all the time. Investigators knock on the door of somebody's home and just serve a warrant without SWAT. You know, so the fact that there is SWAT involved, I think, is significant. Um, and what were they expecting, or what did they think they might encounter? So that
Mhm.
was one of the first things that I thought of when I saw the level of response, because that it's just not always necessary. Um, and then to hear that there were 3 people detained also was interesting to me, because it's illustrious of potential conspiracy. So they're thinking, is it maybe more than one person that could be involved in this, not just an individual? Because obviously, if they're bringing in more people, are witnesses?
Oh,
Um, so I think that they're trying to figure, they're kind of mitigating all of those variables at the same time. Then to take that car, you know, and to haul it that way, to literally impound it. They put it up on the rollback.
mhm,
They want to take it in the pristine condition, because should it contain evidence, they have to make sure that they collected it, which this is what they're doing in this case. They're actually collecting the car. And then, and sometimes when we see cars taken like this, we actually have to cover them completely and then move them. But in this case, they didn't do that. They're just hauling this car without a cover, as it appears here in this photo. And this is the first time I'm seeing the um, the action here from last night. And so
mhm,
so, then they move it to an impounding location that is secure and
mhm,
that is potentially climate controlled and all those things. And once they get it in that environment, then they can actually process it. And if that's actually what they're going to do. But, I'm not even sure about that at this point.
mhm. People are asking some questions in the chat. Just to reiterate, everybody, this was an FBI warrant last night, or warrants, I should say. And the FBI is assisting the Pima County Sheriff's Office. So there are a number of things going on with this case. I mean, not only are they investigating the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the abduction of Nancy Guthrie and where she is, they're looking to track down persons of interest. They're seizing vehicles. I'm assuming, such as this one that they got a tip about. They're saying a lead came in, and so the feds went and got this warrant. And I know, I was talking to Chris McDonough earlier. He said he saw, that they brought over the fingerprint machine for the guy
Mhm.
that was taken out of this Range Rover, and
The
so
live scan, the live
yeah,
scan machine. Okay.
and so we also know there's unknown DNA in the house, or pardon me, on the property, I should say.
Yeah.
The sheriff hasn't said who it's, where on the property it was found, but let's face facts. If it's going to be probative, it's likely going to be in the house or on a surface they believe was involved in this
Right.
event. Would you agree with that, Dr. Laura?
Yeah, I would, Angenette. I think that, they're trying to play their cards right, so to speak.
Mhm.
They're very much wanting to make sure that these I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that they're making sure that they're following the law by the book. I do find it very interesting that they have these warrants, that they are actually able to they have to write an affidavit. An investigator has to write an affidavit, then present it to a
Mhm.
judge, and then the judge has to review it, and then the judge decides whether or not it warrants probable cause or not. And then if it does, then they sign the warrant, and if it doesn't, they don't sign the warrant. That's how it works. And the fact that they have enough probable cause to serve these warrants, there's a lot going on behind the scenes here that
Mhm.
we are not aware of as the public and as the media.
Right.
We're not aware of it yet, and it's very interesting to me that they're getting tips. I saw something like 30,000 tips, and I don't know what it's up to now, but I think that was the last number that I saw. And my understanding from this operation was that this was the result of a tip that they received or some type of a lead that they received, and they were following up on that. But whatever it was, it gave them enough probable cause to get a warrant.
Right. And I don't think that that's an easy feat. I mean, probable cause for an arrest, that's a low bar, but to want to go in and get somebody's DNA, their prints, things like that, there might, and to get a warrant for somebody's home,
Right.
they need a little more.
Yeah, that it's true. And I'm not a police officer, um, uh, but just understanding the way that I do after having worked homicide now, this is my 25th year.
Mhm.
Um, I've seen a lot of investigators write a lot of warrants and been part of that process many times for many, many homicides.
Mhm.
And, they try to include as much detail as possible in those affidavits. They try to include every type of evidence that they have grounds to include at that time. So, like for a crime scene, you might expect to see we're looking for biological evidence, fingerprint evidence, trace evidence, fiber evidence, footwear and they'll go through like the whole thing. And so that way they want to make sure that these warrants cover everything that we might find during a crime scene search.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see what they actually what the warrants say someday when they're unsealed in this case.
And I have a feeling they will be sealed, especially
Oh
the
yeah.
FBI warrants. I mean, this
Oh
is an
yeah.
active, yeah, it's an active investigation, and the FBI,
Right.
they're going to zip it. They're not going to say anything.
No, and they shouldn't, they shouldn't. And I know for a fact, and I've said this on so many times before, and all of our viewers are probably tired of me saying this, but it is the truth that what is going on the inside of this investigation with the FBI and the sheriff's office and what we know are two totally different things. And it really needs to be that way because in order for it to be prosecutable, it really needs to be kept in a pristine condition. So, the job of the CSI is to identify, document, collect, and preserve evidence. That is the job of the CSI. The detective is a little bit different. The detective comes in and they are in charge of comparing and contrasting the evidence that they have to the law to see if a crime has been committed. So it's a reactive process. Detectives aren't usually on the front end of a crime before it happens. They're there after something happens, and then they have to basically make that call whether or not it is if it breaks the law or if it's within the scope of the law. So I think that all of that is going on here. And, the sheriff's office, I was on a show with a retired detective from Pima County, and I
Mm,
learned a lot from him. Yeah, I
mm.
learned a lot from him. And one of the things that he said was that they had a lot of kidnappings and a lot of ransom type crimes up until 2013, and then they trailed off.
Oh,
Yes, and he said in that Pima County area up to 2013, most of that was done by the cartels that were working in that area, and he didn't elaborate too much further than that. He was more or less just explaining, um, because I think the question was something along the lines of, is this normal for you guys in Pima
yeah.
County? And his response was, it used to be. It used to be normal. And he worked there for like 20 years. So he was a good sound person with
Mhm.
a lot of experience. And he did say that this was commonplace. This was a type of very common crime back then.
So that's terrifying, first of
It
all.
is. Yeah.
Um, Second of all, with the cartel link and it being so close to the border, that doesn't shock me. Um,
Mm-mm.
does does he feel though that this it has a cartel hint to it? Because when you say cartel, I look at Nancy Guthrie, and to me, she's a low risk victim. Like Chris and I were talking about that
Yes,
last night. I mean, this is an
that's right.
84-year-old woman, who's just living her life in a home she's lived in since 1985. Her daughter and son-in-law live like 4 miles away. Her older daughter, that's the unusual part of this, is a celebrity, like hosts the Today Show. And, you know, I don't know, like the cartel going and kidnapping somebody for ransom, to me, I could see that's like somebody who owes a drug debt, not necessarily
Um,
an 84-year-old woman, unless somebody saw this Today Show piece that was done back, I think, in the fall, where Savannah goes back to Tucson. There's publicity about this. And, I'm from Tucson, and here's this story about me being in Tucson, and here I am with my
right.
mom.
Yeah, I saw that. Um, she I don't know that it necessarily has to do with Savannah and his opinion. I don't know that he actually rendered an opinion in that interview about his if he thought it was connected to the cartel. But one of the things I think is interesting, to your point, Angenette, is that she is a low risk victim, but she's a low risk victim, but a high maintenance victim at
Right.
the same time.
Mhm.
So she's low risk, but she's high maintenance. And for me, that is a really interesting piece of the victimology, that why does a predator, like, and I'm just, that's one of several different types of people that can do something like this. So just for example, a predator, especially like a serial predator, something like that, if a serial predator preys on, looks at or let's just actually, let me just totally scrap that idea. Let me think of it this way. Let's look at it this way. When you see a lion in the, you know the savannah,
Mhm.
and they are looking at a herd of zebras,
Mhm.
they are not going after the alpha zebra. They are going after the weakest zebra they can possibly catch, because that's the least amount of energy it takes to catch a zebra.
True. Yeah.
So they don't go for the spry horses. They go for the horses that are weak. And so when I have seen in my career predators that are male predators that are targeting elderly women for the purposes of course, money, and then of course sexual assault,
Right.
also of course, other types of crimes related to robbery and things like that. And those types of offenders, one of the things I noticed about the description was that the description of the male that was given by the FBI was that he was between 5'9" and 5'10".
Mhm.
And that struck me because, we're looking at a picture of him here right now on the screen. This individual is described by the FBI as being between 5'9" and 5'10", not a humongous person,
Right.
not 6'2", not 6'4", not even 6 feet. And I'm short, I'm 5'4", so anybody taller than me is tall to me.
Right.
Um, but like, this is not a super large person. So sometimes there are predators that are of smaller stature, and they prey on children and the elderly because they
Mhm.
can capture, that prey. And so that's one of the things that I has actually crossed my mind in all of this is, if we are dealing with a predator type, which I don't think we are, but if we are, is this like, oh, I work in the neighborhood, I cut the grass for all these places and all these people, which one's the easiest target?
Mhm.
How did she become a target? And when we go back to the victimology, which is, the key to all of it, how did Nancy Guthrie, and why did Nancy Guthrie specifically become a victim of violent crime? And as a criminologist, that's the question, that's the million dollar question we're always trying to answer, so that we can predict crime, um, as we move forward with various cases.
And I'm really curious as to how she was targeted and why.
Yeah.
As you said, she's a high maintenance victim. And this person, this had to be absolutely terrifying. I'm sure she
Oh,
fought back. So I'm showing you all right now the actual video of this person. You know, the FBI went back the other day and measured to determine the height of this person. One thing I want to show you, Laura, is this. This goes back to the Range Rover that was seized last night. Again, the sheriff told local media, or at least one member of the local media there in Tucson, that the man who, you know, his DNA was taken, he was swabbed, he was in handcuffs. And I want people to know, because I saw some stuff on Twitter, he was in the front seat of a vehicle and he was in handcuffs. That happens. That doesn't mean somebody's arrested and charged, but that does happen.
it's detained. Yeah.
Yeah, when somebody is, it can happen. It doesn't always happen when somebody is detained, but it can happen that somebody is handcuffed. It doesn't mean they're arrested and charged, but it can happen for just safety reasons while somebody is being detained. And so there were even people who were lawyers who were misstating what that meant on Twitter, which was shocking to me. But this is the Range Rover, the back of the Range Rover, and it had what appears to be a piece of a legal pad, piece of paper folded up and covering the license plate. And why I bring this up and why I find this to be so interesting is because I saw an interview with Sheriff Nanos last Sunday, and it was part of a CNN story, and it appeared to be, you know, a snippet of an interview from a local news station, but inserted into a CNN story. And Sheriff Nanos said something about how this was challenging. You had people covering up their license plates. And I think he slipped and said that. And he said this, and it was inserted into this CNN story on video. It's a video story. And so I'm wondering, yes, this could be a perp. This could be a suspect. This person was described as cooperative. This person was released. But Laura, this is very odd. I don't know if the feds did this to keep the media from photographing the license plate, or if there are people in Tucson, specifically possibly somebody driving a vehicle of interest, driving around with a piece of legal paper, a piece of paper from a legal pad folded up and covering a license plate number. I mean, it seems very odd.
I would agree. That looks like a piece of legal pad paper, and that is very strange. And it's more common that would be something done by the agency that took this vehicle and collected it simply to protect the privacy of the owner, potentially, because you can run license plates. We're a licensed PI agency, so we can run backgrounds and things like that as licensed private investigators, which is legal and ethical for appropriate purposes. But if that would get into the wrong hands, you could expose the identities of people that the law enforcement agency is trying to protect, because they have not been arrested. And it is very harmful to people to accuse people of things in the media when it's not when they haven't been charged. It can be very harmful to their reputations and to their lives. So it's possible that they were just trying to protect them, because I cannot imagine that somebody driving a Range Rover like this, or any other vehicle for that matter, it's going to put a piece of paper there and think that's going to hold up as they're going down the road. That just seems like they would turn the license plate upside down. They would turn it around. There's a lot of other things they could do that, we see them do all the time. And paper like that is probably not one of the things I've seen a whole lot of in my day.
Yeah, it's really weird. I can't imagine.
It is weird.
Like, if you're going to commit a crime and cover up your license plate, I would think it would
do it
be
right.
something a little more stable.
Yeah, do it right.
a piece of paper from a legal pad, because that's exactly what this looks like. And I feel like the feds probably, I don't know if you've ever hung around cops or detectives, they usually show up with like one of those leather. I don't even know what you call them. Those foldy
Like
thingies.
the yeah. The
They open
things,
it and
yeah.
they've got a legal pad for
Yeah.
notes.
Mhm.
Um, okay. Let's move. Another thing that I'm curious about, Laura, before we move on to another topic. Uh, One person certainly could have carried this whole thing out, but I'm skeptical. One person, maybe it's a burglary gone bad, but one person doing this for a kidnapping seems like a lot. It's possible, but with an 84-year-old victim, you could have one person doing it, but I feel like this might be a two-person job, and maybe we're only seeing one person on camera. Do you, as a criminologist, have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that it is possible that there could be more than one person involved. And, like, this guy is very calm. To me, he strikes me as like a psychopath, type. And I'm just using that word to just explain, just because that's a term that most people understand. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that that's a diagnosis or anything like that, but like a person like this, it's very what they call sociopathic or something, meaning that they do things in an antisocial way that is against societal norms. And
Mhm.
clearly, being masked and gloved with a full backpack full of equipment coming up to this door in the middle of the night is a very antisocial behavior. So let me just sort of preface what I'm going to explain with that. But I think that this guy is low level on the totem pole in this case, and it's possible that there could be other people that are more in charge of the logistics.
Mhm.
And this is more of like a worker bee type, and he's sent in to actually get into the house. um
Mhm.
is he actually the one who abducts or takes Nancy? I don't know. But one of the things that I would be doing, and I don't know that they've done this, Angenette, and I haven't seen anything about it, is I would, obviously you can tell in this photograph that you have up here on the screen right now, there's no blood on the porch the way that we see it
Correct.
after the fact, right?
Right.
So I would be going out with reagents and with alternative light sources out of this off this porch and then down the driveway. And if she's bleeding on the porch, which looks like there was a period of where there was a small stop and then movement again forward, there's going to also potentially be blood all the way down this sidewalk or this
Mhm.
area that's out in front of these tiles. And then it's going to go one way or the other. And you might actually get a location using those reagents to where you can actually find out where that trail of blood stops, because it can rain on blood. it
Mhm.
can it can rain for months on blood on that surface, and you can use Blue Star or another reagent. I personally like Blue Star, and darken the area like it is right here and actually find out where that trail stops. And I think that that's important, to know where a vehicle might have been placed, because
Mhm.
the vehicle location in relation to this guy's behavior is there an actual vehicle in the driveway out there? Because this is a woman who could not walk very well. Or is this something where they picked her up and threw her over their shoulder and carried her out? And that's why we see the blood the way that the blood looks, because the source of blood is a little bit higher. So those are all the kinds of things that I have thought in relation to one offender, two offenders. Sometimes in cases like this, you have a lookout. You have a person that is participating as somebody down the street or something that's watching for anybody that might come up. Um, so I've seen that in these types of situations before. But robbery does not appear to be the motive, because we haven't heard about things missing from the home, and her
Mhm.
wallet and phone and things were left there. So they weren't concerned about that. If this was an abduction that went across the border, is it possible to just get the medication that she needs straight from the drugstore without a prescription, or another way? Or was that part of the planning where they, they know what prescriptions that she has, so they have that all planned ahead of time? But to me, this guy looks more like a mule. He looks like a mule to me. He doesn't look like, this is not a top dog.
Right. Yeah, this seems to me like somebody. Well, first of all, I'm calling him the Walmart kidnapper. We
Oh,
know that the backpack came from Walmart.
yeah.
It reminds me of this other case I covered in Ohio, the Pike County massacre, where mom went out and bought shoes for the sons to wear to carry out a horrific execution of a
Horrific.
family of 8. But these are Walmart kidnappers. We know that the backpack came from Walmart because they've already figured that out. It's the Ozark Trail backpack that you can get at Walmart for $10.88. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, this person could have been hired by
Yeah.
somebody to do this. Oops, I had it right there. This could just be like the local muscle. And when I say that, the guy you pay however much to go in and do this. But there's our Walmart backpack that you can get for less than $11. This is what the feds say it was. It was this backpack.
Yeah.
With the little reflectors on it. Last night I found this ski mask on Walmart.com that looks very similar to me. It's available in a number of colors, but this looks really similar to me.
It does look similar. And even the
Yeah.
stitching around the eyes, especially the stitching
Yeah.
around the eyes.
But this can be purchased on Walmart.com. I don't know if it's available in the store. At least in my local store, it's not available. But you can order it on Walmart.com. Plus, on Fox News Digital, they published a story a short time ago. They think that they found the holster available, that weird looking kind of holster. They think they found the holster available for sale at Walmart, and it's a $10 holster. So I'm calling him the Walmart kidnapper. TMZ thinks that the jacket also came from Walmart. So then the question arises: who is, if the Walmart kidnapper is down here? He's our guy we send in and hire and pay to carry this out. Do the dirty work. Then who's above Mr. Walmart?
And the logistics guy.
Yeah. And so, if they ever can track him down, he's gonna flip on the others. And it makes me wonder, then, are all of these ransom things legit then? Because Harvey Levin was on Fox earlier today saying that, and I'm going to play this. He said that the FBI is very interested in these latest communications he's received from these people. So let's listen to Harvey talk about what he is claiming the FBI is telling him. Because remember, a week ago, Savannah Guthrie put out a video saying, with her siblings, we will pay. Like, we'll pay. This is important to us. We beg you to give us our mother back. We will pay. The demand sent to TMZ and other outlets was $6 million in Bitcoin. There was a Bitcoin wallet attached to the communication. And then they didn't pay. And they never got proof of life. And then there was another note sent to TMZ. And I'm going to play you what Harvey Levin said to Fox today about this.
And so they are extremely interested in this ransom note. They're also interested in the person who has now sent us 3 emails saying in return for money, they will lead authorities to the kidnapper. And Nancy.
Let's dig into that for a second, because this is fascinating. This person claims to know where she is, or at least who the kidnapper is, and is willing to pay $50,000, or is willing to receive $50,000, half of the reward first, and then half of the reward later. Have you heard from this person since we saw the activity happen overnight? Are you expecting to hear from them again?
Well, if you take him at his word, I am not expecting him because he ends his email to us. Let me just read it if I can find this part. He said that there's going to be no communication, that they are done talking. So he says, let me just find this. I apologize.
And he said that before,
I did
right,
say
Harvey?
yesterday was my second and final attempt, but you upping the reward to discredit me is a lowball move. 3 strikes and you're out. So he's saying that he is not going to get back to us again, but he said that the time before and did.
Would you put up that money just to
I
see
think
where
it's
this goes?
I think it's really inappropriate because, based on what we know, we could be interfering with law enforcement. They are not just sitting back. There's a reason that this ransom, this $6 million ransom, has not been paid, and there's a reason why the Guthrie family and or law enforcement has not paid the money. I don't know what that reason is. Personally, I'm puzzled, but it's very clear to me that they could do it if they wanted. And if we got involved in that, I think it would be highly inappropriate and could actually impede the investigation. There's something, obviously, there's a lot they're not telling us, but I do know they're really interested in this. So we're just kind of following along and passing the information on. A couple of things that really stand out in this email, this last one, is that he says that if the FBI gives them the first $50,000 payment in the form of a Bitcoin, they will immediately give the name of the main individual along with his information for you to track. Interesting that he says main individual because that suggests there's more than one person. He also talks about the fact that he feels this could impact his own freedom, which also makes it sound like he's worried they might implicate him in this kidnapping, that he's kind of close to it in some form. But he ends, and this is particularly interesting, that the main individual that he says he can lead them to, he said, be prepared to go international.
Wow.
So again, if this is authentic, he's got to be talking about Mexico because where Tucson is, it's not that far from the Mexican border.
And I appreciate that you're saying if this is authentic because you yourself, you're not sure if this is legit.
So what do you think of that, Laura? I mean, this could all be somebody messing with them, but that would be very, very risky for somebody to insert themselves into this like this and to send these messages to TMZ continuously. We don't know if they've continued to send them to local news because local news kind of handed them over to the feds and didn't share all of this immediately until TMZ did. So what do you make of what Harvey Levin is saying about this person, if this is legitimate, saying be prepared to go international?
You know, I've thought that from the beginning because, you know, the kidnapping and ransom is part of the business model for organized crime many times, you know, and it's not as common in this country, but it is common in Mexico, and they are so close to the border. I think it's interesting, and I've said this before, and I continue to think this, you know, with Savannah working for NBC, you know, that's a gigantic network. You know, you could be sending those things to them, but they chose TMZ for a reason. And I think that choosing TMZ is a reflection of their personality, their emotionality, their demographics, because who is the audience for TMZ? Like, who watches that show? You know what I mean? Like, that is a particular person, just like, you know, true crime. It's typically a female audience member between, you know, 25 and 55 or something like that. And I'm not exactly sure what the demographic, but you understand what I mean.
Right.
Like, who is it? But like, sending a letter or any amount of communication to TMZ has always said, I want to get this out there loud. I want to get this out there fast. I am trying to destabilize the emotionality of the general public. I want a big reaction. They want speed, but they want control. And those are all the things that, like, I think Harvey is hitting on here. But yes, I do like the fact that he's like what the anchor said, he's not saying these are authentic or they're not authentic. He's leaving that open ended, which I think is important
Mhm.
at this juncture. And I also think that it's not surprising that he mentioned that the person said there's a main person, because
Mhm.
I do think that that's possible in this case. I think it's possible that it is international. I do think it's possible that it is um, more than one individual involved. And, you know, the experts in kidnapping and the experts in ransom, the people that deal with that type of crime all the time are the very best to always, to make those kind of judgments on it. But based on what he's saying, I think that everything you and I have been talking about so far tonight, he's alluding to those things.
Right. Um, it's scary to me how this person is saying, "Oh, up the reward to basically mess with me." Yikes! I mean, and it's insane to me too that I hate to say this, but if Nancy Guthrie were still alive,
Mhm.
wouldn't they be sending another note saying, "Hey, where's our 6 million bucks? Now it's up to 8."
Yeah, and I think that for me, and I haven't talked a lot about this, but for me, I don't remember what video it was, Angenette, that they did. It wasn't has Savannah done 3 videos?
So there was the first video with she and her siblings, and then her
Right.
brother Cameron put
And
one
then
out.
Cameron.
And
Okay.
then there was another with the 3 of them last Saturday night. And then on
Okay.
Monday of this past week, she put out one by herself where she actually, she had makeup on and she looked much better, much
Yeah.
different, but it was
Stronger.
unscripted. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Okay.
seemed unscripted. All the others seemed very scripted, but like the FBI, I'm sure, wrote the others with the input of the family. It seemed like
Yeah.
they were scripted by the FBI. But the other one was more like it seemed off the cuff, the one last Monday. And
Yeah.
then she posted the video, like the old home videos of her mom. I forget exactly which date that was, but it was later this week. She said, "We will never give up."
So to me, the way that I think what the video I'm thinking of is the one they did, the 3 of them that they did last Saturday.
Yes.
To me, that one felt like there was a lot of asking for closure in that
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah.
They were asking to celebrate her life with her,
Right.
and they kind of it sort of felt to me like they understood that due to her health maybe or other information that they have that they're not sharing, that it was unlikely that their mom could still be with us. You know what I
Right.
mean? That she was still living at that point. It sounded to me like they understood the dynamic that was happening. And one of the reasons I think that maybe there hasn't been this Bitcoin exchange or the issue of why they haven't paid is because they haven't paid because they don't think there's an urgency to preserve life. I don't know, but I mean, that could be one reason. And then,
Mhm.
are they going to try to negotiate, a price to actually be able to bring their mom home, whether their mom is not with us anymore or still with us, but maybe in a bad situation because of her
Mhm.
health. And they're trying to figure out what that price is. 6 million Bitcoin is a lot of money. I mean, it's a tremendous amount. I think I thought that somebody said the other day that Bitcoin was like $66,000, like one Bitcoin was
Yes.
66,000 or something like that.
Yes, and so that's the thing. I'm like, is it $6 million or do they want 6 million? No, I think it's 6 million US dollars, but they want it in Bitcoin. That's what I
Oh, I
think it
see.
is.
I see.
Yes.
Oh, they want $6 million in Bitcoin.
Yes.
Understood. Okay. Yeah, I mean, one way or the other, that's still a lot of money. And um you know, I don't
it's a
think
lot of money. Yes.
it's a lot. And I just don't think that, and I mean, I think Savannah, obviously she makes a lot of money as well. So they're looking at that situation like, well, Savannah could pay it, you know, if she wanted to pay it, she could pay it.
Right.
And that's probably what, you know, what they're thinking. But that video struck me as the family accepting, you know,
Yeah.
what
Let's
was
look at
going
that.
on.
Yeah, that's how it struck me too. Let's look at it because it didn't seem like hopeful. They said celebrate with her, but it seemed to me like they felt she had passed. But I could be wrong about that. Let's watch this real quick.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Yeah, to me, we received your message and we understand what happened. So like to me there's a lot of material that has not been shared, you know what I mean, like with the media as far as maybe what's been sent to Harvey Levin, and like those seemed like when she said, we received your message and we understand, that's a response to something that they have said in that message that maybe they alluded to Nancy's condition, you know, or something about her health, or, you know, something like that. I don't know. And then if the letter or the message did say, you know, this is what happened and this is the situation now, Savannah being the central person in that family, you can tell that she is, because she's seated in the center of, you know, all that stuff is strategic.
Right.
I think the way that she's positioned there on the couch, leaning forward to the victim, or towards the camera, all those kinds of things are interrogation methods and techniques. There's a lot of ways that she's using words, and the way that they're structured, the way that the words are actually linked together to make the sentences. She could have gone on, extrapolated on that. She didn't. We understand. That's it. And then, you know, this is the only way we'll have peace, is if we have her back. And I can tell you that there's a lot of families that feel that way. And over the years, in cases where we haven't had where we have had missing persons, and this does happen a lot in DV cases, like for example, you know, Scott Peterson is a great example of with Lacey Peterson. She was missing for a while, and you always hear those families say, we understand what's happened, we just want them back.
Right.
You know, and I think Gabby Petito's family might have felt that way too, where they were like, where is Gabby? We just want her back. You know, and so a lot of times you hear them say that, even if they don't know if their family member is still alive or not. Some people, I think they do believe that their family member is still alive, even after years and years. I worked a case called the Shotgun Slayer, and I did it for a show that I did called Notorious. And he was operating in the 70s. He was a serial killer. He's in prison down in Florida. And it was like in my home county where I grew up. So they had me do this show about him. And there was a girl that was abducted when she was 15 by him. And her mother has left the porch light on for 40 or more years at this point, just thinking she might come home someday. And so I think there are people that do hold out hope like that. And then there are also people that accept, you know, it's not reasonable that my loved one is still alive under whatever circumstances. And then they just want their loved one home with them so they can do the proper things. So for me, it just sounded like acceptance. It was very, very different than the first video for me.
Most definitely. Most definitely. The first one was just raw emotion, and Cameron looked shell shocked. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a man, but still, I
Yeah.
mean, he had just arrived in Tucson. Savannah is beside herself, and then Annie
Oh yeah.
is, I'm sure, in shock too. So it's crazy. Everybody, I dropped the link into I dropped the link to Dr. Laura Petler's YouTube channel into the chat. So please subscribe. True Crimes and Equines, I think is what you call it, right, Dr. Laura?
Yeah. Yeah, it's True Crime and Equines.
Yeah.
I stand in my barn and groom horses and, talk about cases that are on my mind. Very casual, Angenette, very casual.
I love it. I love it. And actually, some people were asking whether your power was back on. So
Oh,
people
no,
wanna
we're on
know.
day 11. We're on day 11 with no power. No power. We're still on generator power. I appreciate you guys asking. That is so kind of you to be
Yeah.
asking. But yeah, we're on day 11. The final repairs were done again yesterday. And when I called Duke Power to say everything's repaired the way that you asked for it to be repaired, they said, okay, 1 to 3 business days.
Oh, I know that, knock on wood and knock on whatever this is not wood, whatever this is glass and metal something on my desk, but I'm familiar with the Duke Energy runaround. So I feel your pain, and I'm so sorry that that's happening to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate everybody's concern. Everyone has been super, super nice. And obviously the biggest problem for us is getting water to the animals, because when the power goes out, we can't use the well.
Right.
And that's how we get water to 40 animals out here. And, we have a new baby horse. She was born on Thursday night, and it was a dark barn, but we were able to run a generator so we could at least get some lights down there for her. It has been like Little House on the Prairie out here.
I hate to hear that, even though I love that show.
Okay.
I love that show. My son and I were watching it recently. I was trying to and he actually liked it. And I was like, oh my God, I love that you love this, because this is so much better than the junk you're watching on your iPad and whatever video game. Because the video games are not this is a whole nother topic, but the video games today are not like what they were like when we were kids. They're just, I feel like they're just dopamine hit injectors for these kids, and they're not healthy.
Oh, we had great video games when we
did. We had amazing video
games. Yeah.
They didn't mess with your brain.
No. And if they could, if we had something like that again, I'd be like, come on, Angenette, let's go. Come on. We got to play this. Let's go. Come on. And we would sit down and it would just come back to us immediately, and we'd be able to play it. It would be so much fun.
We would rock it. And I'm telling you, I could probably go over to my mom's right now, and I guarantee you, I know exactly where those I guarantee you she probably still has them, and I could probably find them. And we would,
you find them, we'll play.
Yes, I would love that. Just before you go, because I know you have to go, some quick questions. Mandy's asking, why is the reward so low? $100,000. Savannah would pay $2 million to get her mama back. The reward was upped by the feds to 100,000. Any theories on why it's not more?
I've seen cases where they start out with low amounts at the beginning when they're kind of like crowdsourcing, and they're looking for information in general terms from lots of different people. So I think that may be why we saw the 2,500 at the beginning. And, they were like, okay, we'll have to pay this person 25 and this person 25 and this. So they have lots of increments of 25. I mean, I've seen it go that way in my experience. And then as an investigation continues, and not in this one, they might have 30,000 tips, but they might only have 2 leads in that entire 30,000. You know what I mean? So it usually boils down to one kind of a thing. And, somebody knows that guy that was on the porch for sure.
Sure.
But I've seen it kind of crawl up, it gets greater as time goes on in an investigation. So that, to me, it looked pretty normal.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right about that. Beautiful Messy Ball asks, Nancy's birthday was January 27th, just a few days before she was taken. They could have been referring to celebrating her B-Day.
Uh,
Maybe, maybe there was, I wonder if there was, that's interesting. Now that I wonder if there was something in the communication, because these communications, we don't know what was written in them. Maybe the proof of life, who knows? Maybe there was a reference to her birthday in that. But you could get that information probably publicly if you're savvy enough. But
right.
maybe there was a reference to her birthday in the note.
I don't know. I mean, it could have been that, anytime somebody writes something or types something or sends a message or anything, even if they're using AI, I still think that there's going to be a reflection of what the prompt was, to even in for AI, to say what I want to say, and they type it in, okay, write me a ransom letter, or whatever they're going to write, to be able to send.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, when we do statement analysis, I always like to listen and watch and read
Mhm.
all together, and then separately as well. So I love when investigators, and I do this myself in my own investigations, I always ask to videotape or audio tape the interviewee, and
Mhm.
and I always state the same things at the front end. And then the other good thing is when they write a statement, because you can really see a lot of personality and emotionality in the way somebody thinks, in the way that they write, because
Mhm.
clear writing is a reflection of clear thinking.
Mhm.
And if the writing isn't clear, the thinking isn't clear.
Mm.
And that was actually something I learned when I was in grad school, because I worked in the writing center, and I worked with all these people that were, and I edited papers and helped people learn how to write. And
Mhm.
one of my professors said, always remember that clear writing is a reflection of clear thinking. And so if you see this really jumbled looking writing, or this paper doesn't make any sense, or it doesn't flow right, the person isn't thinking clearly.
Mhm.
And so I think it's interesting that that they're receiving these messages, because the FBI and the BAU, there are brilliant people involved there. I don't know a whole lot of FBI agents, but I do know some. And the ones that I've known and worked with over the years have been really smart. And a lot of them have been lawyers and agents. And they've had very interesting backgrounds, very diverse backgrounds, and they come with a wealth of knowledge in various things. And of course, there's agents that are in different places, but I'm talking about ones that were involved in the BAU specifically. They
Mhm.
are really, really smart people, and they're well trained. And I have a lot of hope that that everybody's doing the very best that they can, and they're doing the best job with the resources that they have. And hopefully the feds are leading here, because they have the resources to be able to do this. The state lab doesn't have as much, or the local agency, of course, is normal. Most local agencies don't have people that have a lot of experience in this area, so you have to rely on the people that do.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. The FBI lab could probably turn this stuff around a lot more quickly. So
Oh yeah.
I am confounded as to why the sheriff, instead of just keeping everything down at that private lab, why he just doesn't release it to the FBI. Because in a minute, the FBI could send an agent or two with a plane to wherever this
Mhm.
lab is in Florida and
Yeah.
say, release the material to them. And they would fly that to Quantico immediately. So
Yep.
I'm shocked as to why that hasn't happened. Um, and like, just because we've already sent everything there. Great. Turn it out. Like, fine. That's great that you have this contract, but just turn it all over, because with the stroke of a pen, or you know, pick up the phone, the sheriff could say, you know what, we're we're handing this DNA testing over to the feds, just release it all to them.
You know, for me, once I heard that Nanos had a contract with DNA labs, we've used DNA labs in cases. We've used it when we've had degraded DNA and the state laboratory did not have the technology or the sensitivity in their technology to be able to test things with degraded DNA. So I, in my career, have recommended and had clients and police agencies and stuff send things down to DNA labs, and mostly in cold case investigations. But needless to say, they have always done a good job. It wasn't a real fast turnaround, but I don't know what their circumstances are now. The thing for me is that what I heard the sheriff say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Angenette, but what I understood it to mean was he said all of our DNA goes there because we have such a backlog in the state of Arizona. We cannot send it to the state lab because we'll never get it back. It'll take a year, it'll take 18 months, or, you know, however long, but it was going to be a long time. So their agency, the Pima County Sheriff's Office, he contracted this lab to do all their DNA work because they need it back sooner than their state lab can get it back. That's very normal. I worked in North Carolina for the DA's office for a long time in the early 2000s. And it was very normal for DNA to take like a year to get back. And that was a long, long time ago. So then you have Quantico. They have the option to do rapid DNA. And I'm not a DNA expert. I rely on DNA experts to teach me. But they do have rapid DNA, and they have really great technology. And then once they go through their processes and maybe reach the top of what they have available, there are other places like Othram down in Texas that do incredible things with DNA. And you could always ask them or go to them or, you know, something with them. And they're just brilliant people. And I think that it should have gone to the FBI. I mean, that would have been what I would have done regardless of the contract, just because you're asking for, you're trying to save time. And so I think the FBI had the ability to save time and maybe do something a little differently than DNA labs down there does. And I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what the circumstances are with DNA labs anymore. It's been a long time since we've used them. And they were always very good, you know, but I would think that the FBI has the ability to just do a lot really fast, and maybe faster than a private sector lab.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I am certainly not throwing any shade at DNA labs.
Me neither.
And
no,
I don't want anybody to think that. And everybody, you know, these state labs often do have these tremendous backlogs, but typically in a case such as this something like this is urgent and would move, depending on what the policy of the lab is, would move to the front of the line. With the FBI, this would take priority. So they would just fly this stuff to Quantico and they would get it done very fast. And even the sheriff talked about the rapid DNA testing in the very beginning with this, because they can do the rapid stuff, but then they still have to do the more thorough DNA process.
The confirmatory,
Yeah. Laura, I know that you have to go to another program. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. I wish you could stay longer, but would love to have you come back another time.
Thank you for having me, Angenette. It's fun. It's a good conversation. You know, I enjoy working with you, and you're so inquisitive with all your questions, and it's an honor to always to be part of your circle. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really loved having you. Have a great evening, and I'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Laura Cutler. Everybody subscribe to her channel. So she's going to go over, I think, to STS with Joel and the COE and Steve. So she's great. She's fantastic. I want to answer a few more of your questions before we wrap up here. Mandy says, I'm late, so forgive me if you have already covered this. Why doesn't HL/TMZ just send the messages to LE? Well, they have been sending them, but that I think when they got their first one, they broadcast it live. TMZ live was going on, which makes me think that this person was watching TMZ live potentially, and then they send this message or sent it shortly before the show started, and then Harvey reads it on the air, which to me is like insane. But he is who he is, and he makes his own decisions. But I'm assuming that he's sharing these messages now with law enforcement and the FBI, and he's probably saying, I'm assuming he's saying on the air things that they've said, we're cool with you saying that, because he doesn't want to hurt the investigation and anything that could harm Nancy Guthrie. John Doe CE6GP, thank you for the super chat. And thank you all for the super chats. Paying a reward would encourage this behavior and endanger far too many people. I don't think paying a reward endangers anybody. If you're talking about the ransom, maybe. But I don't even know how you pay a ransom anymore. I mean, it's not like you can drop off a suitcase full of money somewhere. You could pay the Bitcoin. Bitcoin can be traced. So where are these people? And what's the motive here? And remember, guys, these ransom notes, if they are legitimate, I thought they were kind of maybe a red herring, but maybe they are legit. I don't know. If these are legitimate ransom notes, especially since this person is now messaging TMZ saying, I can give you the identity of the main person and all this stuff. If that is actually valid, if these are legitimate, authentic messages with somebody with information, which I'm not sure they are, who knows what the motive here is? It could just be money purely, but this is terrifying. It's nuts. It's terrifying. I don't understand it. It's sick is what it is. And keep in mind, we don't know the contents of a lot of these messages, but Savannah Guthrie and her family do. So maybe they have some feeling of what this motive could be if these are authentic messages. So let's listen to a little bit more of what Harvey Levin said during that program today.
Admit this could be a scammer, because people are coming on TV left and right and wondering, have you become a honeypot for scammers, whether they're overseas or whether they're local? But you're telling us the FBI is taking these letters seriously.
We've gotten, other emails as well that are pretty easy to discredit. They are taking the ransom letter extremely seriously, and they are taking this letter asking for the reward in return for identifying the kidnapper. They are taking that seriously as well.
Okay. Harvey, thank you for sharing that letter with us, and any more information you get it to us as quickly as possible. We are trying to figure this all.
So let's listen to that one more time.
Because where Tucson is, it's not that far from the Mexican border.
And I appreciate that you're saying if this is authentic, because you yourself, you're not sure if this is legitimate. This could be a scammer, because people are coming on TV left and right and wondering, have you become a honeypot for scammers, whether they're overseas or whether they're local? But you're telling us the FBI is taking these letters seriously.
We've gotten, other emails as well that are pretty easy to discredit. They are taking the ransom letter extremely seriously, and they are taking this letter asking for the reward in return for identifying the kidnapper. They are taking that seriously as well.
Okay. Harvey, thank you for sharing that letter with us, and any more information you get it to us as quickly as possible. We are trying to figure this all together. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
So she says that they're taking it very seriously. That's what she says. I just got a text from somebody who I was hoping to have come on. So I just texted that person back. So everybody, somebody just said Harvey a honeypot, and they're laughing. Let's take a look at this guy one more time. This is the supposed abductor. It's really, really disturbing. This is so sick and demented. And if this is an international operation, that's terrifying. And I'm just hoping to God, I'm hoping for a miracle here. I think at this point it would have to be a miracle. This is the abductor. It's just so terrible. This is the latest, guys. Last night, a federal court-ordered search warrant was executed at a residence near East Orange Grove Road and North First Avenue in connection with the Guthrie case. That was 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home, guys. The warrant was based on a lead we received. No arrests were made. A traffic stop was also conducted and a person was questioned, but no arrest resulted from that incident. There are no further details available at this time. This Range Rover was seized. A person who was in this Range Rover, their prints were taken, more than likely DNA as well. This is the back of it. Looks like law enforcement probably covered this up with a piece of legal pad paper. They had like a sheet up. They opened the back end of this and they had a sheet up. My opinion is that they put that up because, my God, they didn't know what they were going to possibly find in the back of that Range Rover, if anything. And they certainly didn't want the media seeing what they were doing. And if there was a person back there, they certainly didn't want the media seeing that. The sheriff to local media described the people who were stopped last night and detained as being cooperative. They would be cooperative because guess what? The feds had warrants. So there isn't any not cooperating when the feds pull you over and put the cuffs on you and have a warrant. This was a lead they received, they said. A lead can be many things. It could be a tip, an email tip, a tip, phone call. It could be anything else. We don't know. So they're waiting for DNA testing to come back. There's DNA found on the property that it does not belong to Nancy Guthrie or her immediate family, or her family, I should say. And that's all we can do is wait. I'm looking now to see if there's anything new before we wrap up here. The sheriff has also told, guys, this is one more thing I wanted to share with you. This is according to Matt Finn of Fox News. He told Fox News that this person of interest in the Range Rover was cooperative. So this is what I just told you. I'm guessing anyone at the residence was detained, but that is standard procedure to allow investigators serving a search warrant freedom to conduct their search. I was not at the scene, and I'm sure people were detained, but no one was arrested. And more importantly, no sign of Nancy was found. Looking ahead, every day moving forward, there will be a lot of police activity throughout the community. As to what level of activity that is depends on what lead they chase and how it develops. These leads start in the command post and move to the field as needed. That is one reason you're seeing activity build up as the day goes on that can ultimately lead to a search warrant looking for Nancy and any suspect involved. So I guess they're just going to go scoop people up as they get the leads and tips and whatever. I mean, can you even imagine? So that's according to Matt Finn from Fox News. Again, everybody, 1-800-CALL-FBI. That is the number for tips for anybody that has information about the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. I've really appreciated you all joining me here tonight. If there is anything that breaks after I get off of here, I'll try to hop back on, or I'll do a short to update you. People are asking about the person in the vehicle. Who reportedly, there were reports that this person, harmed themselves. That's not true. That was not true. That was like internet chatter last night. That was not true. Yes, they are still awaiting DNA results. I would love to go out to Tucson. This is kind of what I do. I cover big cases and have for years. So this is kind of like my kind of thing. So I would go out there. Everybody, thank you again so much. If you would, let me know where you've been watching from. Please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Let me know what you think of the show. Let me know of any ideas you have about this case, and we will go from there. Please say a prayer for Nancy Guthrie and her family. Say a prayer every night, every day. I'm really hoping that she can be brought home. So thank you to the mods, everybody, for being here tonight. Happy Valentine's Day. I will see you back here again very soon. Take care of yourselves, hug your loved ones, and be kind to each other. See you later.